Hi everyone. I want to show you how to make a fermented treat, and I don't have a better name for it than that, so that's just what I'm calling it. What we're going to be using in this recipe is a cup and a half of raw almonds and half a cup of shredded sulfite-free unsweetened coconut. It's also organic. And we're using probably about a tablespoon of honey. We're going to use about 3 to 4 tablespoons of whey, and we're going to be using 2 tablespoons of hemp hearts and a eighth of a teaspoon of cinnamon, probably an eighth of a teaspoon of vanilla, and then we're using 100 grams or a 3.5 ounce bar of 80% cocoa solids dark chocolate. And so that's essentially the ingredients. So the fermented part of this recipe is going to be happening to the almonds, the hemp seeds, and the coconut. So we're going to start by putting the almonds into a jar like this, and we're going to add the 2 tablespoons of hemp seeds. You could use chia seeds. They would work really nicely too. And then we're going to fill this with water just to cover. It's well covered there. And then we're adding 2 tablespoons of whey. So essentially what we're doing here is, by adding the whey, is speeding up the process of fermentation. This isn't going to ferment very long. We're only going to ferment this for about 12 to 24 hours. That's all it really needs. And what we're doing is we're activating the enzymes and sort of starting the digestive process for the hemp seeds and the almonds. And we are adding good bacteria as this process occurs. But because we're only doing it for 12 hours, it doesn't have a lot of time to build up, on its own, a lot of good bacteria, so we're cheating and we're adding some. Now, you could use, this is whey, and it's from straining yogurt. So if you take a natural yogurt, and remember, a natural yogurt is just going to be made with milk ingredients and live bacteria culture. That's all it should say on the label. And if you strain that yogurt through a cloth, the whey will drip out, and then you can use this as a starter. If you don't want to use whey from yogurt, then you can use kefir, and it's harder to strain out the whey, but it's not impossible. Something else you could use is sauerkraut juice, and that may sound really, really strange to be putting into a treat that's going to have chocolate and honey and cinnamon and nuts and coconut and stuff, but it doesn't really have a very strong taste. It's a bit salty, but that's about it, and that doesn't, some people might like that. And you're putting so little in against all the water that's in there, it's not really a big deal. So there are other options besides using the whey. I like to use the whey because it's easy and it's fast, and I like the cheese that you get when you strain out the whey. You get a nice yogurt cream cheese, and I like that as well. So that's one jar, and we're just going to put our lid on. Tightly, because remember, this is an anaerobic process, and we have left some space there from the top, so that's good. And then we're just going to put the coconut in a separate jar, and again we're just going to cover it with some water just to coat it. And we're going to add another tablespoon of whey to this. I'm just going to mix all that in. Then we're going to put the lid on this one as well, again tightly. And then we're just going to let these sit now for the 12 to 24 hours. It'll probably be about 20 hours total by the time I get around to doing this. And then tomorrow, when we have finished fermenting this, then we're going to strain out the water, grind everything up, add the chocolate and the other ingredients, and then I'll show you what to do with the mixture that results from that. So it's been about 20 hours since I put these in the jar. So now what we're going to do is open the jars and drain the liquid out. There's not much to this other than getting it out of the jar. And it has absorbed some of the water, which is good because there is fiber in here, so it's not an issue that they have stuck together a bit. Get all those hemp seeds out. And now we're just going to throw the coconut on top because it doesn't really matter. This is all going to be ground up in a food processor, so it doesn't really matter. I could have put this all together in one big jar had I had a big jar, but I didn't have a big jar, so that's why I did it in 2 jars. And so what you want to do is you want to leave this sitting like this so that it can drain. I usually leave it sit for about half an hour just to make sure you can, move things around a bit, make sure the water gets out. These are not going to be dry, and you don't want them to be dry. And this plays a role in the final texture. So when we make our fermented treat, which does not have a name, you'll see that they're soft and they need to be refrigerated to sort of set up, and they need to be kept refrigerated, partly because they do have good bacteria present. So that's one reason you want it refrigerated. And also, because we can't dry these out, it's a little too soft to sit at room temperature for any length of time. So these are never going to be dry, and we don't want it to be dry because that will damage the good bacteria. So we want it somewhat wet, but we don't have to have it super wet. So we're just going to let it drain for about half an hour. And as you can see, I have this in a nylon mesh strainer. You do not want to strain through a metal strainer because there could be some reactivity between the bacteria and the metal. So we're just going to let that sit for about 30 minutes. All right, so this is drained, and you can see there's quite a bit of liquid that has drained out of all of this mixture. So now what we're going to do is melt the chocolate. And so what you want to do is create a double boiler. And so I've got a pot here with some hot water in it, and I'm just going to stick a bowl on top like this. You could use a smaller bowl. You don't need to use a big pot like this, but this is what I have because this is the pot that works on my heating contraption here. And so essentially all you want to do is start to heat the water, and it doesn't have to be very high. Just a low heat will do. You don't want to get the chocolate too hot. And then you're going to open up a chocolate bar. And you're going to try to open up a chocolate bar. There you go. And then you're just going to break it up into little pieces. It'll just melt faster this way. Since they put these little indentations in here, making it so easy to break, we're going to take advantage of that and break them up and stick them in this bowl. So there's a trick to this because this is wet. This is a wet mixture. We need to make sure the chocolate doesn't seize. So chocolate does not like water. And so if I were to just grind all this up, stick it in a bowl, add the melted chocolate, it has the potential to what they call seize. And when it seizes, the chocolate doesn't mix very well into it, and it will not set properly. And we need this chocolate to help this mixture set so that we can turn this into our fermented treat. So what we're going to do is we're going to add about a tablespoon of coconut oil, and you could use butter as well. And we're just going to let that melt with the chocolate, and then we'll mix it all together. And that will give the chocolate a little more flexibility so that it won't be as prone to seizing. You can see it doesn't take very long. So I'll lower the heat a bit. It doesn't take long at all for this to melt. So we will come back when this is melted. So as you can see, our chocolate is melted and I've mixed all the coconut oil in. And so now what I'm going to do is put this mixture into the food processor. So this is our drained almonds, coconut, and hemp seeds. You can see they are still a bit wet. That's fine because that's what we want, because that means there's good bacteria present. And we're going to now add a tablespoon of honey. So we'll just put that in. And you can use organic sugar, you can use maple syrup, you can use coconut sweeteners, you can add whatever your preference is. And now we're going to process this first. So we're not going to add the chocolate now, we're just going to mix this all in first. Okay. So it doesn't have to be very small. It's, you know, this is going to be how you like to eat it. But as you can see, it's pretty mixed up, okay? So it's nice. And now we're going to add the chocolate. We're going to get all the chocolate in there. You can add more chocolate if you like. It depends what your taste buds are like. And we're also going to add a little bit of vanilla, just a titch, not even an eighth of a teaspoon, maybe a 16th, just a bit. And you're going to have to move this around to make sure it gets all mixed in. I'm working to get the stuff that's on the bottom up to the top and the stuff that's at the top onto the bottom. And you know, if there was more liquid in here, it would mix better and faster, but I don't want more liquid because I need to form these into little balls, so I need to keep this as dry as possible. Okay, so this is mixed in together. It's a fairly dry mixture, as you can see. but it's still soft. All right. So what I'm going to do now is to take it out of the food processor, and I'm going to divide this in two for a reason. So I'm going to take out my blade first, and I'm just going to put half of the mixture onto one piece. And then I'm going to put this back on here. So now what I'm going to add is some food grade peppermint oil. So you have to make sure if you add this, you're going to make sure it's food grade. So not all essential oils are food grade. But this essential oil, which is peppermint, adds a lot to, in terms of flavor. It's going to really permeate the flavor of this. So if you like the combination of peppermint, chocolate, and coconut, then you're going to want to add this. However, it's important that you only use a few drops. So that's a very key piece of information. And so we're just going to put in maybe 3 drops, maybe 4. And we're going to turn this on. And just mix it in there. So we haven't really talked about what's so great about this treat other than the fact that it has good bacteria in it. Well, it has almonds, which are prebiotic. It has coconut and hemp seeds, which are prebiotic. It has honey in it. Honey has 10 strains of good bacteria. Of course, we fermented it to give it even more good bacteria. And now we've added some peppermint. Boy, I can smell that peppermint. And so peppermint is very balancing to the intestinal tract. And so this is a great way to add even more digestive benefit. If you can't find food grade peppermint oil in a little bottle like I have, what you can do is there are enteric coated peppermint oil capsules. You've got to make sure they're pure peppermint oil. Sometimes they add thyme and fennel or other essential oils, so you want pure peppermint oil. And what you can do is you can just take a little pin, and they're in a little soft gel capsule, and put a little hole in the pin and put in a few drops that way. And you know that the enteric oil capsules are food grade because obviously they're meant for ingesting. So what I'm going to do is put these into the refrigerator, let them set a bit. It's nice and dry in terms of, I could probably form them now, but I'm just going to let them firm up a bit, and then I can form them into balls. All right, so these are ready to roll, and again, it's going to vary depending on how much sweetener you add. So I put in a tablespoon of honey. If you wanted to add more for taste purposes, you could do that. You could also use maple syrup, as I mentioned, coconut sweetener, so you can add evaporated cane juice, organic sugar, doesn't really matter. But when you do that, you're adding more liquid. And so how well these will set up is going to be dependent on how much liquid you add. As I said, these are meant to stay in the refrigerator anyway, so if they don't set up really well at room temperature, that's okay because you're going to chill them anyway. And so you might have to get these completely cold before they're ready to roll. But I only added a tablespoon of honey, so these are ready to roll now. So what I have here is a couple of options. So I'm going to roll them into a ball, and then I'm going to roll them. Here I have some sucanat. And what I did was, if you're not familiar with sucanat, this is sucanat. And when you see the real sucanat, you can see that they're little balls like this. You could roll them in that if you like, but they're kind of crunchy, which you may like. That's fine. But if you like something that's a little smoother and a little softer, then you can throw the sucanat into a coffee grinder and turn this basically into the equivalent of a whole sugar powdered sugar. So basically that's what it is. So it's got all the vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients that is present in sugar cane, but it's really fine. So it's going to coat the ball that we're going to make fairly nicely. The other thing you can do is use shredded coconut. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the shredded coconut for the peppermint one, and I'm going to use the this one, the sucanat one, for the plain. Now something else you can do with the sucanat is you can add some cinnamon to it, and that would be really tasty as well. So first I'm going to do a few just by themselves. So this one is the one without the peppermint. I'm just going to make a little ball like that, roll it in, get it covered. And if you wanted more sugar flavor, more sweetness, this is an easy way to do it without throwing off the texture of the mixture so that it still rolls well. And now I'm going to add a bit of cinnamon. Doesn't change the color much. It goes a little darker, but not much. And again, just like when you added the peppermint to the other one that helps with digestion, cinnamon also helps with digestion. Okay, so that's our one with the sucanat. And now we're going to do some with the coconut. So this is the one with the peppermint in it. I can really, really smell the peppermint. If you can get food grade essential oils, they really do add flavor, and very little goes a long way. And then I'm just rolling that in coconut. Look how pretty that is. It's so pretty. Okay, so put that here. So here's our finished product. You can see they're very pretty, they're very small, and these make a nice little treat. You can take them to work for a snack. They're full of really beneficial fats as well as some protein and some carbohydrate, lots of vitamins and minerals, plus they've got the good bacteria in it. What more could you want from a snack? You could serve these as a dessert. You could serve these with coffee. You could serve these anytime you want, or just as a quick bite when you're in a hurry. So I know it seems like a lot of work. It wasn't really a lot of work. It took very little time. It took, just a few minutes to put them together to ferment in the first place, and then it didn't take long to have them drain and then just throw them into the food processor and roll them. So it really doesn't take that much time, and they are really quite yummy.